Welcome. This is a very special episode of the channel Misteri y Ombre, where we will tell you about two people who have spent their lives fighting evil. The evil in its purest and most terrifying form: demons, evil entities, cursed houses and objects. We will talk about the spouses Ed and Lorraine Warren, the most famous couple of demonologists in recent history. Their stories, real experiences, are so disturbing and frightening that have inspired numerous horror movies over the years, and continue to do so. Among these, Amityville, the movies of the Conjuring series, the series Annabelle, The Nun, The Curse of La Llorona, and many others coming soon. This couple has worked on many cases, more than 10,000 from their statements. A very long career, lasting almost 60 years and full of houses haunted by ghosts, by evil entities, demonic possessions, and everything that no one would ever hope to experience in life. But let's proceed step by step. Edward and Lorraine were both born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Ed in 1926, and his wife the year after, in 27. Their vocation towards the paranormal activities began during their childhood. More precisely, Edward punctually experienced a strange phenomenon: his wardrobe every night, and always at the same time, opened by itself, and from inside it appeared strange lights that illuminated the faces of some people in the dark. And among these faces, appeared always the same face of an old lady who looked at him insistently. Lorraine, on the other hand, at the age of 7, realized she had a supernatural gift, that one of perceiving and seeing the energy that surrounds people, their aura. Visions that were not limited to the observation of the living people, but also of those trapped between this world and the afterlife. Ed and Lorraine met each other at the theater, and almost immediately began a lifelong relationship. But their daily life as a couple only began at the end of World War II, when Ed, an army officer, took leave to go home. They married very young, and in 1945 the couple had a daughter to whom they gave the name Judy, an indirect witness of all the most significant events of her parents' business. Ed was a lover of painting, and tried to combine his passions by painting mostly houses declared haunted by spirits and ghosts. Paintings that, when possible, he tried to sell to the owners of the houses, and where he very often came into direct contact with the phenomena that occurred in those houses. The first investigations into the paranormal world began almost as a joke. The man explained the beginning of their career with these words:
"We traveled to New England to seek buyers for our paintings. Paintings that we sold for the modest price of $3 or $4 each. But on the other hand, beer cost 12 cents a gallon, and hot dogs a 10-cent coin. Considering this, $3 or $4 a painting wasn't too bad. Anyway, while driving we saw a sign with the words Henniker. I looked at my friend Jerry, sitting in the back seat, and said that I had heard of a haunted house right there. The ocean-born Mary. We arrived at the house, and I asked Jerry to go knock to see if there was the possibility to enter and visit that place. But Jerry refused, and then we decided to send Lorraine, who with her characteristic Irish charm had more chances. We observed when she knocked on the door. We saw a line appear in an upper window, then the light went slowly down to the lower floor, and finally the door opened. Lorraine beckoned us to follow her, and once inside, we spoke to Mr. Roy, the guardian. That was the first time my wife had an out-of-body experience. She had thrown herself out of her body and then flied in circle above us.
It was exactly at that moment that the career of the Warren spouses began, which led them to face ghosts, poltergeists, cursed objects, and everything most creepy that can populate the world of the paranormal. A few years later, in 1952, Ed and Lorraine founded the Society for Psychic Research in New England, recruiting a large group of people: demonologists, ghost hunters, psychics, but also doctors, scientific researchers, police officers, priests, and religious representatives. The choice of bringing together such different points of view, diametrically opposite, was fundamental for them. Actually, it was their prerogative to face each case with the utmost skepticism, with a scientific approach rather than a spiritual one. Ed and Lorraine were the first skeptics, and their own words were, "No one can deceive us. If we don't see it with our eyes, we don't believe it." This attitude was the simplest way to filter fakes from potentially real cases, but above all, to reassure easily suggestible people, when it was possible to give a rational and scientific explanation to the events for which the help of the Warrens was requested. Theirs was a scrupulous, a maniacal method as professional investigators, made up of evidences, counter-evidences, audio and video recordings, witnesses' statements, and detailed reports. So much detailed that it had been used more than once in court trials. Theirs approach to the world of the paranormal made them run into literally terrifying cases. Cases so frightening and chilling that it is almost impossible to reproduce such sensations, even for the best of horror movies. As mentioned, the cases in which the Warrens have worked are thousands, and among these investigations, a conspicuous number of creepy paranormal events have been documented, their most challenging episodes, such as the case at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville. Transferred to this new home since just 2 months, the Lutz family escapes in the middle of the night, terrified by persistent and violent paranormal events. In that same house, a few years earlier, an entire family, 6 members of the Defeos, was massacred by one of the members, the 23-year-old Ronald. There was talk about demonic possession that resulted in a murderous raptus. The perceptions of Lorraine Warren investigating that house were of the presence of an entity coming from the bowels of the earth, a terrifying and very powerful entity, strong enough to make the exorcism of the house impossible. The case at the 284 Green Street in Enfield, where the Hodgson family was harassed by strange noises in the middle of the night, chairs, furniture, and objects moving on their own, levitation phenomena, physical attacks of invisible entities, and the possession of Janet, one of the daughters. These strange events began to be so persistent and frightening that they could not be hidden, and several people witnessed those paranormal events, including some journalists. The Enfield events also attracted the attention of Ed and Lorraine, who investigated these paranormal activities. The case of the house in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, where the Smurl family moved due to the destruction of their previous home by a hurricane. In this house, the Smurls spent the first 18 months quietly, but then strange disturbing events began: mysterious stains in the new carpet, scratches on the wood paneling, television on fire, radios that turned on by themselves even if the power was unplugged, poltergeist, and everything that can make a normal home a haunted house. In January '86, the Warrens dealt with this case, and their investigation stated that the house was possessed by 4 evil entities, and one of those was a demon. A creepy story. As mentioned, the cases of the Warren spouses are many and all fascinating. Annabelle the doll. The case of the Perrin family. The White Lady of Easton. the exorcism of a werewolf, and many others, but we don't want to anticipate you too much. Also because, on our channel, you will find videos dedicated to every single case of the Warrens. Their investigations and their extraordinary cases have made this couple perhaps the most famous paranormal researchers in the world. The passion and commitment in their work have earned Ed Warren the title of the only non-clerical demonologist recognized by the Vatican. In their careers, Ed and Lorraine have seen many creepy things, and in many cases, they have dealt not only with haunted houses, but also with possessed and cursed objects. Many of these objects were taken by the old owners in order to free them from the evil presence that was enclosed in them, and then kept with the utmost safety in order to be under strict control. The place where all these relics were collected later became a museum, the Warrens Occult Museum, but still maintaining its safety, including periodic blessings by priest, and other tricks to confine the evil energy blocked into that place. Some objects that can be observed in the Warrens Museum attract particular interest. The doll Annabelle, the conjuring mirror, used to evoke spirits, the shadow doll, capable of entering dreams and killing in sleep, a coffin used by a modern vampire, masks used for diabolical projections, tombstones from children's graves that were used as altars for black masses, crucifixes that were thrown from walls and desecrated, cursed African and Egyptian objects, a severed head, voodoo stuff, and much more. Furthermore, the Warrens are authors of several books, and thanks to their influence and commitment, over the years, they formed a new generation of demonologists, and among them, Dave Considine, Lou Gentile, and their nephew John Zaffis. In 2006, Ed died, leaving Lorraine, her lifelong partner, to continue the adventure alone, which she did with her usual determination. These are her words.
It was Ed who wanted me to continue. So I'm doing it for him. I'm doing this to honor my husband. The work meant a lot to him, and that's why I want to go on.
And so she did, until she too passed away in April 2019, reaching her beloved Ed. Obviously, the amount of success of these two demonologists equals the countless criticisms received from skeptics. But one thing is certain, the Warrens have left a huge heritage, made up of reports, testimonies, stories and adventures on the world of the paranormal, that inspire and will continue to inspire movie writers and directors for the coming decades. And we came to the conclusion of this video. I guess each of you has your own idea. Leave it in a comment and tell me, is the legend true? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel Misteri e Ombre. Don't forget to share these fascinating stories with friends. See you at the next mystery.